we teach people how to treat us.
Yeah.
And when we don't set boundaries and we just let people walk all over us, a lot of us, it's easy to fall into this victim mentality, right? Of like, why are my friends like this? Why do they do this to me? Why do I not have any good friends? Or like, I'm just a magnet for all these toxic people. But
yeah,
when you say it that way, you have no control over it because you think, oh, I'm a magnet. Like, I can't change that. But when you say it in a way of, I let people treat me like this, then it's like, oh, I have to take the responsibility for that. And that's icky. Like, I don't like that.
Yeah.
But there's hope in that too, because you can be like, okay, well, if I'm causing this, then I can fix it.
Exactly.
I don't have to let people treat me like this.
Hi there, this is Sarah Kuhn. If you are an INFJ or in a relationship with an INFJ or related to an INFJ in any way, and you want to figure out how they operate, what makes them tick, and how to communicate with them better, this is the show for you. It's called The Quiet Ones. This is a show that deconstructs INFJs, what they are, how they think, how they feel, how they operate, and how they relate to people with other personality types. Whether you have just found out that you're an INFJ or have known for a number of years, there is something for everyone. You will learn more about your personality type so that you understand who you are and understand how you operate in the workplace, in relationships, in your family, and with friends. I want you to walk away from every episode feeling like you have a place of belonging, feeling like you are no longer alone, feeling like you have a place to be heard and seen and understood as you really are. This is a place to connect with other INFJs, to learn and grow and really thrive. I want to give you inspiration and real life strategies that are going to help you figure out how to live your best life every single day. Though INFJs are very rare, you are not alone in this world. You are not the only one who thinks the way that you do and feels the way that you do. Hear from real INFJs just like you. Hi there, I'm Sarah Kuhn. Welcome to another episode of The Quiet Ones. Today is a very special day for the Quiet Ones podcast. It is our 2-year anniversary, and I am so very excited. I had no idea 2 years ago that this podcast would be so completely amazing and such a blessing to me. We have well over 125,000 downloads, which just blows me away, honestly. And I've learned so much from doing this show, and I've met so many amazing and wonderful people along the way. So I really want to say thank you. This podcast would not be what it is if it wasn't for you listening and showing up every single week, and it just really means the world to me. I do this work because I absolutely love it. I love to help people. I love to share a part of myself and a part of my world, and just the knowledge that it can help even one person is enough for me. And the fact that you're listening to this today, it just means so much to me, and I really want to say thank you. So I've decided that I'm going to throw a party this week. I wish that it can be in person, but with the way that the world is right now, that's just not possible. So I thought we could throw a party on Instagram because that's where so many people gather. My Instagram handle, if you don't follow me there, it's at INFJwoman. So please make sure that you go follow me and join us for a party. I'm going to do a live stream on Thursday, September 16th, which is this Thursday, at noon Eastern time. And we're just going to talk about the podcast, maybe talk about some of our favorite guests, and answer any questions that you guys have. And, if you have any suggestions for episodes in the future, I would certainly love to hear them. And I'm going to have some giveaways as well. I have some copies of my book to give away, which is the INFJ User Guide. And I have a super attractor deck, a card deck from Gabrielle Bernstein, which is one of my favorite card decks. I'm going to get a couple of journals and then also some of my favorite treats, which is Starbucks gift cards. So please come and join me. It'll be so much fun. Again, it's going to be an Instagram live and my Instagram account is at INFJ Woman. So I really hope that you'll join me, and I can't wait to see you there. On today's episode, we are talking to Julia, who is a fellow INFJ. We're talking about boundaries and expectations. This is one of a few episodes that you're going to hear in the next little while. I haven't decided how many. I think it just kind of depends on how many INFJs there are who are willing to talk. We did this as an Instagram Live that was just a conversation between INFJs, just to say, hey, what's going on? What do you want to talk about? If you are interested in being on an Instagram Live or being on a podcast episode, I would love to talk to you. Please send me an email at skuhn@infjwoman.com, and my email address is also in the show notes. All right, so let's take a listen.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you? I'm just going to turn the volume up. Sorry. Hold on one second. I have no idea how to use these things, and this is my first live ever, so.
That's okay. I was just talking about how I'm learning too. I've done quite a few of them, and they keep changing it, so it's like relearning it again and again and again.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a mess. So welcome so much. I'm really happy that you could join me today. And,
me too.
So tell me how you found out that you're an INFJ.
So just to start, so my name is Julia, and I'm also a Bostonian. And
nice.
Yeah.
Did I know? I don't know if I knew that.
I don't know if I knew that either until I just checked last night and saw that you were a Bostonian too. So.
Yeah. What part of Boston do you live in?
I'm in the North End.
Oh, okay. I'm south of Boston, actually. I'm in Weymouth, which is like south of Braintree.
Yeah.
Nice.
Nice. So I found out I was an INFJ probably like 9 years ago. And I don't think I thought anything of it at the time. It was more like, oh, okay, these things make a lot of sense. And then I kind of put it off and didn't think about it again until 2016, when I started my undergrad program again to finish. And one of my entrepreneurship professors had us take it like the first day of class. And, a few years later, I still was an INFJ. Sometimes they say it changes, but mine has stayed consistent for the last 8 years. And it was the first time, or the first time I'd taken it, and also thought to myself, okay, well, obviously if my professor's telling me to take this test, then she's trying to get us to be more self-aware and really like tune into what that means in terms of our approach to business, but also to potential colleagues or classmates. And I'm super grateful for that, because it was in really exploring what it means to be an INFJ and the rarity of it, especially identifying as a woman, how much more rare INFJ women are in the INFJ realm. And I don't know, it offered me a lot of comfort, because during that time, I also decided to start therapy and really dive into understanding myself more. So, yeah.
It seems like so many of us, like we take the test and then kind of put it aside, and then there comes a point in our life where we're like searching for answers or something, that we're going through a lot, and that's when it comes back up and we really start diving into it. That's what happened to me too, and I've talked to a lot of other people who say that. It's like, oh yeah, this is cool, okay, let me put it down, and then later on you're like, oh, why is my life this kind of mess? And you start looking for answers, and then that's when you really dive into it, and you're like, oh, like I already had all the answers that I needed. They've been sitting here in my closet for a while.
Exactly. And that's definitely how it was. And I think, like, of course my professor just put it in front of us to help us in our professional endeavors, but you know, it really more so helped me in my trauma healing journey, and trauma from my childhood in my 20s, and then, you know, in my 30s I experienced multiple deaths of loved ones and friends within like a very short period of time. And I'm glad that I had that information, because during the more challenging depressive states, I was able to observe myself in it in a way I probably wouldn't have had I not had that information. So even though there were really challenging moments, it was helpful in very subtle ways. And I feel like it gave me something to cling to that was mine in that moment. And that was, I didn't feel like anyone understood me. So typical.
Right.
But especially in those more traumatic, grief driven moments, it was such a comfort to me. And now that I'm on the other side of, or I've in a different place with my grief, it's helped me to understand that I'll never stop grieving, and that's okay. Like it lightened the load for me a lot. So yeah.
I found the same thing, that it doesn't take away the pain. A lot of times we're looking for something, you know, like we have a headache, we want the Advil that's just going to take it away. And a lot of people come to me and they look for those answers, like what's the thing, the one thing that's going to fix everything. And I'm like, well, I want to tell you that I have all the answers. But I also want to be honest with you, because I don't want to set you up for failure. This is going to help, but it's not Advil. It's not going to take all the pain away. It will help you though so much, just in that feeling of understanding. It's like this comfort that you're not broken or messed up. And even though you don't feel things the same way that other people do, you don't process them the same way that other people do. It's just that knowing that you're okay, that what you're feeling is okay for you. It makes so much difference.
So much difference. And during this more exploratory period of my life in the INFJ way of being, I had I wouldn't necessarily say a mentor, more of like a life coach. And he said something really powerful to me that I was able to kind of weave into learning more about what it is to be an INFJ. And it was, life is pain and joy. And that's just the truth. And, which is an INFJ. It was a little hard to hear, I think, that the painful moments were going to be there, but it humanized those things in a way where I could learn more about how I identified with those two specific things. Because I could do it for other people all the time, without second thought, especially when leaning into my more empathetic nature. But I wasn't giving any of that to myself. And I think the hardest thing for me has been, and I'm 37 years old now, and I'm probably just in the last year, I think the hardest thing for me has been boundaries, like setting boundaries and honoring those boundaries, because it makes me feel like I'm not, available enough and not loving enough, and not in my nature. But it's given me another moment to really dive even further into my INFJ way, to say, hey, you know what, if you want to heal and fix and go out into the world and make a difference, you kind of have to do that for yourself. So
I was just thinking about that yesterday. One of my friends was texting me and they were like, hey, would you help me with this thing? And I'm like, sure. So I'm diving into research. I'm putting stuff together, and they're like, okay, I'll call you later and we'll talk about it. And I'm like, okay. So I knew what time they were going to call me, and I was expecting it and ready for it, and the phone didn't ring. And so I started watching something on Netflix, and I'm like, it's 9 o'clock and the phone never rang. What happened? And it was just such a simple little thing, but it was I would never do that to somebody. If I said, hey, I need help and I'm going to call you, I would call them. It's just, it's something that's so simple, but I learned this phrase that I absolutely love, that is, we teach people how to treat us.
Yeah.
And when we don't set boundaries and we just let people walk all over us, a lot of us, it's easy to fall into this victim mentality, right? Of like, why are my friends like this? Why do they do this to me? Why do I not have any good friends? Or like, I'm just a magnet for all these toxic people. But when you say it that way, you have no control over it, because you think, oh, I'm a magnet, like I can't change that. But when you say it in a way of, I let people treat me like this, then it's like, oh, I have to take the responsibility for that. And that's icky. Like, I don't like that.
Yeah.
But there's hope in that too, because you can be like, okay, well, if I'm causing this, then I can fix it.
Exactly.
I don't have to let people treat me like this. But setting boundaries is difficult. And like you said, honoring those boundaries is like,
that's been the most painful thing. Yeah, especially for me. My family is not good at honoring boundaries. And so when I tell people I live about 2,000 miles away from my family, they're like, oh, that must be really hard. And I'm like, no, it's not.
Sometimes it is, but most of the time, we get along better.
No, I totally can relate to that. I grew up in for better or worse, my parents are still married. They've been married 40 years. I grew up in I'm lucky in that way. And they're overall wonderful people, and I am close to them, but as close as they think they are to me. Boundaries is not a strength of either side of my family. I'm also the child of an alcoholic addict, and luckily that parent has been sober for going on a decade now, and it's definitely changed the nature of our relationship and the emotional reliability. But growing up as an old soul in a house, which I think I've come to realize being an old soul is something I find a lot of INFJs are naturally. Growing up in a house like that, it was challenging to, but I think it fed in a good way my self-reliance emotionally. But I think in adulthood, it made it harder for me to open up. And that's definitely something I've had to work on. But I can totally relate to that completely.
Yeah. I've had people tell me that space is not a good boundary, but I think that you have to start where you're at.
Yep.
And not everybody is going to be good. Like, especially if you've never done this before, then it's really hard to say, listen, we have an issue here. Like, this is my boundary and you can't go past this. It's easy to say that, but when you're talking to your mom or your sister who you've never said that before, and it's going to cause a whole thing, and you're just like preparing yourself for all of that. And sometimes all of that fear and anxiety is like, nope, not going to do it. Not going to do it. And so, if you've never done that and it takes you a while to be able to set the boundary and then to stick to it, if you need to get away from it, then space is a good first start, because that could be a huge thing. I mean, for me, I lived at home through half of my college. So, and the first space that I took away from my family, I went to England. I was born and grew up in the Midwest, and I got an opportunity to work for a nonprofit organization for 3 months. Nice. And I was like, I'm leaving.
Bye.
I was in college, and I'm like, I'm leaving. And my parents are like, what? But you've never really lived away from home, and we've always just been right here. And what if something happens? And I'm like, I don't care. It's fine. I'm going to stay with a host family. I'm sure that they have things figured out. Like, it'll be totally fine. And, worst case scenario, like, there's a U.S. embassy there. I'm sure that, if like I have a passport, I can get home.
Yeah.
And then what happened? It was the summer going into the fall of 2008. and the financial crisis, the world melted down, and I was like, ooh, I need to go home. I don't know what's happening here, but like, and
Yeah.
so it was hard for me to be like, to go home and be like, you know how you said that the world would melt down if I left? It melted down
Yeah.
when I left. Like, I didn't think that that was a real thing, but it's fine. I made it home. I'm sure it had nothing to do with me going to England.
So I see actually someone with the handle INFJ_unknown posted, we give our all and expect ourselves to be reliable, but other people just plain aren't. I that's such an impactful statement, but I also want to touch on it because my expectations is something I'm trying to work on right now. Not just of myself, but of others too, and hopefully you find this helpful. To each their own. This is something I've just chosen to focus on because I kind of, you just touched on like victim mentality and all that stuff. And I definitely don't think INFJs are victim mentalities. I think we're just much more sensitive, and that's
right.
a beautiful thing. It's actually a huge strength in a world where people are numbing themselves or staying apathetic. But we're all works in progress, and I think 2020 more than anything taught me we're all human, and so expectations can there's a fine line between expectations and boundaries, and that's kind of where I'm at. Like, if life will happen and things get crazy, and if someone's constantly late, I'll use a person I'm currently in a friendship breakup with as an example. Always late to things, emotional dumping, comes to me for the same advice all the time, always, takes nothing of what I say on board, maybe because my expectation has been that they'll react the way I would. And that's just not what happened, right? They let someone toxic back into their life who I was also friends with. And this person had no business coming back into her life. They were super detrimental to her on many levels. And she stopped talking to me because she decided that my reaction to, the third time this person coming back into her space was too abrupt for her. The calling it like I was seeing it type situation. And it really is, people react when you tell them the truth. And when it makes them uncomfortable, that's when the friction comes. But I think what I realized is there, leading up to this moment, there were plenty of signs to say, you know what, maybe the friendship served the purpose for the time it served. Maybe my expectations can't just be, oh, well, I can see this so clearly, I know better. Maybe I shouldn't, her process is different for how she's going to deal with it. And that's fine. But then I don't have to welcome that toxicity. So again, like, trying to figure out how to set a boundary and maybe distance myself from this person, but maybe let go of the expectation that they're going to have their process. They're going to deal with this the way they're going to deal with this. I can't expect people to save themselves if I'm trying to save them. Like, that's a them journey. So if the repeated action from the other person has been, oh, I'm just not going to evolve in this way, is then that becoming draining to me? So how do I give them the space, let go of my expectations, and simultaneously set a boundary? Because clearly there's an air of toxicity to whatever this friendship was, and maybe it's not what it's going to be now. So, I think, and furthermore, like, anytime I've had too many high expectations of myself, it's super leaned into that perfectionism that exists, that idealism that exists very much in a very rare way and different way in the INFJ world. And it's actually a great quality. It's just, how flexible am I staying in those moments? Do I give myself the time to, like, dig my feet into those expectations, or do I kind of like acknowledge that's how I'm feeling and then take a step back and go, okay, am I going to be like in my bed under the covers with the pillow over my head for the next 3 days if I keep doing this? Or am I gonna like maybe go do something else to give myself space from this moment? So I guess what I can say is like, it's I'm getting to a really powerful place in releasing expectations with others. And I'm finding that it's making me release toxic expectations of myself so that I can be more creative, be big picture thinking, be super analytical, yet without exhausting myself for someone else.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. Just realizing that we have expectations of other people is massive. I just went through that a couple of weeks ago. I went to a couple of concerts that I was so looking forward to for like more than a year. And one of my friends went with me, and this is somebody that I had met on Instagram and hadn't really met in person. And I don't really know much about her personality type, as in, you know, what type she is, but we talk every single day. And so I had this expectation in my head of how things were going to go. And of course I was a little bit worried, because anytime you're meeting somebody new, you know, like, don't meet people off of the internet. That's what what we learned when we were growing up. And so my parents are like freaking out, like, you're going to Baltimore and you're meeting somebody that you met on the internet? And I'm like, no, it's going to be fine. Like, trust me, it's totally going to be fine. And so then my friend texted me a few days before the concert, and she's like, hey, is it cool if I bring one of my friends? And I was like, well, I mean, I guess. Like, obviously I'm still learning the whole boundaries thing, but I'm like, okay, like, I don't want to make anybody mad, and I know that, you know, there's a money issue involved too, so traveling is expensive. And then we were coming to Boston after Baltimore, so I knew, you know, it was expensive for them. So I'm like, yeah, okay, that's fine. And then we had dinner reservations for the next night at a place south of Boston, and she's like, hey, is it cool if I bring somebody else to that dinner? And I'm like, what? Like, I mean, I thought that this was us. Like, why are you bringing all these other friends? And, you know, so I spent a couple of days freaking out, and my process of freaking out is texting all of my other friends, like, listen to what this person did. Isn't that bad? Like, is it bad? Because I don't know if it is. And so I need you to tell me that it's bad, or like, tell me if I'm overreacting, because I can't process this right now. I'll be able to process it like 6 months from now. Yeah. But I need some answers like right now. And so they all like collectively agreed, yeah, that's kind of rude. And I'm like, oh, I thought so, but I didn't want to say that, you know? Yeah. And then I actually met my friend, and we go to, and she's super nice, and I absolutely love her. But we go to the concert, and there's like, I don't know, 8,000 people there or something. And she knows half of the people there. I'm like, how do you know all of these people? Like, seriously. And she kept getting up out of her seat and going to talk to other people, because, you know, she just knows all these people. And then we go to dinner the next night, and she spent 3/4 of the 2 hours that we were there talking to other people, because it was all people that were going to the concert, and she knew all of them. And I was like, sitting there talking to her other friend, who was extremely unpleasant, and I'm like regretting every decision that I had made up to that point. And then later I started thinking of like expectation, you know, like it wasn't really that bad. It was just that my expectation was something completely different. And so what made it feel bad is that it didn't meet what I thought that it was. And then, you know, I had to talk to a couple of people who I really didn't like. And then it was like, now it feels 10 times worse than if I had no expectation at all. It probably wouldn't have been that bad. Yeah. But I think, I mean, I've been in, not with a concert, but I've been in a similar situation with the person I was just talking about. And I think I also like
kind of observe these things as lessons. I don't know if you do that in terms of
Yeah.
like, okay, well, if it's this person and it's happened more than once, then maybe that's just how they are, and that's cool. That's them.
Right.
But do I want to put myself in that position again? You know?
Yeah.
And how do I quietly and nicely decline next time?
Yeah, there's a difference between accepting how they are, which I think is a good thing, but then continuing to submit yourself to being in that position is like, it's not really for me.
Yeah.
So if I ever accept a dinner invitation again, I need a list of who's going to be there. What are the general topics of conversation going to be about? I know this sounds fussy, but trust me.
Yeah.
I mean, the conversation at the dinner was like so bad that I got up and left kind of rude. Like I felt rude. I probably wasn't rude because I was trying not to be rude, but for me to get up and leave while people are still sitting there eating is like rude. But I'm like, okay, if I have a lot higher expectations of everything else, maybe I have a lot higher expectation of this too. And it really wasn't being that rude. It was just like setting a boundary. I don't know.
I think there's situations where it can be both too. I like, again, I think for me, releasing the expectation is it's not one thing or the other. I mean, one thing I love is complexity. My INFJ personality type has taught me more than anything that's a thing that exists for me. Right. But so is that true always? And like, I just kind of assume yes. But again, like 2020 last year and things that I went through and whatever really taught me like how much more willing I am to protect my energy than I probably was before. And, you know, I think I had moments where not leaving the house was challenging, but I preferred not leaving the house. So
right.
It kind of works out for me.
Yeah.
But you know, it's getting to my late 30s and like really realizing what my expectations are and like managing them better. Either like choosing to go to something or not is really a me thing, and like, but also making space for the fact, like, if something is rude, then like confronting it, like taking the time to digest and then going to the person later. Because right, if they really are your friend, then there's a tactful, like, positive way to go to them and say, hey, you know what, this made me uncomfortable, and maybe this is just a me thing, but you know, just so I manage my own expectations next time, like, I was looking forward to just like spending quality time with you. Like, these are statements that I would have been horrified to say to people over a year ago, but that I think now, because last year made me so hyper aware of my own energy and how I'm willing to expend it and who I'm willing to expend it for in very specific scenarios is fine. Like, that's me, that's fine. I've given space to all my friends who my circle is much smaller than it used to be. And I found that that's way more empowering, and it allows me to give that energy I love to give to less people in my life. And now that's making space for me to give it to more people in my professional life. So there's a real beauty to being an INFJ when you heal. And I think the healing part is the hardest part. Or at least it's taken me the longest to heal. From childhood trauma to now. And like, again, I think for me, I'm still in this space where I'm relating a lot of my INFJ way of being to trauma healing, because I'm just coming out of it. And it's allowing me to open up professionally in a way that I just wasn't making time for before, because I was so wrapped up in my own personal stuff and I wasn't confident or empowered in my own voice, until I realized I don't really need to give that to everybody, and that it makes it more impactful, again, for my professional life and the things I want to achieve and like the mark I want to make. So I'm an account manager now. And luckily just on the phone and email. I don't need to do video, so that's good. But just really diving into more relationship management oriented work. And, you know, my customers are all university, hospitals, government entities, law firms, courthouses, prison hospitals, and knowing that their jobs, they're all of the people I serve are frontline employees, all of them. And whether they're doctors or they're the office administrator, or it doesn't matter. So kind of being soft. And, you know, one thing I'm trying to build now is the reputation as a customer service enthusiast, but a relationship management empath. A lot of what I see lacking in the traditional business world, especially in account management, because of the nature of the industries that those jobs exist in, is it's all just transactional. And
yeah,
where's the heart-centeredness in anything that we do? You know, we're so interdependent as human beings in a way that I hope 2020 revealed itself to. Like, not one thing can exist without another human being directly impacted by it. And I'm not talking just on like a pandemic level, but on just service to others. And what does that mean? And yes, volunteering. And, you know, when you hear people talk about service oriented work, typically it's nonprofit. And, you know, I have my things that I love to give to as much as I'm able to monetarily right now. But why can't I apply that heart-centeredness to my day job and getting comfortable and confident in my voice as an INFJ to where I'm really not backing down from that anymore? I don't need to kick and scream and make a show, but being able to confidently speak to the things I want to do, the things I'm saying, how I'm delivering those messages, even in like simple conversations. Because at the end of the day, I'm in inside sales, but there's such a relationship management oriented nature to what I do. And I'm really kind of feeding into that. And so I think it's feeding my goal to soften the relationship management side of what being an account manager is. You know,
do you think some of that comes with age? Because I'm 35 and I've noticed a lot of that too. In the last 3 to 4 years, I've had like this amazing personal growth journey, and I've started realizing so many different things. Like we were talking about with boundaries and expectations, taking a step back, thinking about how we're affecting other people more so than in the past. And then I've also noticed that there are some people in my life who are like 18 to 20, and there's such a distinct difference. And I catch myself going, did I act like that? Do I have that same kind of attitude? Like, has it been that way? And I want to go back to people and apologize. Like, I've spoken to my mom multiple times, and I'm like, I owe you such a massive apology. I mean,
of course. Yeah, for sure.
Obviously you weren't right about, but wow, if I treated you like that, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no,
you know?
I totally agree. I think just generally speaking, for any personality type, as human beings, like with the blessing of time, you know, and the privilege of being able to live and get older and like experience more things for good or bad or ugly. And for sure, I mean, you know, I remember turning 30 and everyone's like, oh, your 30s are your best. And like the first 5 years of my 30s, I mean, I'm grateful to have had a roof over my head and jobs, and I got to travel. But I went through more pain in the first 5 years of my 30s, you know, and fell apart on a mental health front in a way that I hadn't. I thought I had prior, but I hadn't. And it really, I think, experiencing, I specifically, you know, healing my relationship with my dad, who was, you know, now a decade sober, and the relationship with my mom, and humanizing my parents, right, too. Like, that's something I've really focused on. You know, I hope to be a mom very soon, and what relationship and rapport do I want to have with my kid, and what can I mend and heal? You know, my parents were in their late 20s and 30s when they were raising my brother and I, and
yeah, mine too.
They had a, you know, we had a great life for the most part. Now I can look back on that, but there was a lot of trauma for them too, you know, addiction, alcoholism. My mom managing that and trying to do all the things all the time. And, you know, I definitely think that age and experience has a lot to do with it, but I also think it's that aha moment, like that epiphany of, okay, I'm the only thing I can control, in the way that I'm the only thing I can heal, but also realizing that, like, I'm very privileged to have access to healing services. You know, again, realizing your surroundings and the impact you have on yourself and others, and unraveling anything you thought you knew and your narratives. And, you know, it just, it allows a lot more intimacy, and to evolve whatever the definition of intimacy is in any relationship you have, even the one you have with yourself. And that can be really powerful, not just in personal relationships, but professional ones. And it can change the view of the world, and not just your world, like the world entirely. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a good and a bad thing. I mean, I had this conversation with my friend a couple of weeks ago, and she said, once you see it, you can't unsee it.
I feel like that's the INFJ curse, because the thing is, I think we see a lot of things. We're very tuned in a way that I hadn't given way to, I think, just out of overprotection of myself. And it's scary now, like, to be so open to seeing all of it, and like what to do with that information at the end of the day. Because we're not like other personality types. We can't just like put it somewhere, and like people will say, oh, Julia, just like let it go or whatever. I'm like, you can't say that to me. That's never gonna be my thing. I don't want to ignore it. My parents, look at America as a whole. We've got nowhere with avoidance. Why am I gonna continue to ignore this? It makes no sense. Like,
my parents used to tell me the same thing. Like, you take everything straight to heart. You need to stop doing that. And I was like, what kind of advice is that? At the moment when I was young, I was like, oh, okay, so I'm broken and I'm messed up. Like, how do I do that? And now when they say that to me, it's like, well, duh, of course I do. Like, I have this deep feeling personality. That's how things affect me, and that's not wrong.
No,
it's just not that I have to figure out how to work through that. Just because you don't understand it doesn't mean that it's wrong.
Yeah. Again, when you speak, I think one of the most, this is where it's a positive thing. Like, as an INFJ, I found a tremendous amount of comfort in seeing all of it. Yeah, it's hard to process sometimes, but like, in seeing all of it, I get to carry that truth around, and not in a way that's like, I'm right, you're wrong, or an arrogance or egotistical way. If someone takes me that way, then that's them telling me who they are. Like, it's not I don't need to take that on from them. But people they get uncomfortable when they're confronted by the truth, whether it's like the world, politics, to poverty, to them dealing with their own shit. When you say things that make them uncomfortable, you've hit a nerve. Like, that's a huge strength as an INFJ, and one that I'm finding is a strength in business. Like,
and so many people don't want to hear the truth. They don't want to know. They don't want you to hit the nerves. They want to hear what they want to hear, and not what the truth is. They want to be told that they're right. They want to be told that they're great. And especially, I've learned that in business too, that especially when you work with a bunch of old school guys, some of the even younger guys are that way. And a lot of women are that way too, which is like, I've been hired in so many jobs. I've had way too many jobs to talk about, but every time I get a new job, they're like, okay, we're going to hire you because we want somebody who has like this fresh perspective, and we want to make a bunch of changes, and we see that everything needs to be redone. And I work in digital marketing. So I do like websites and social media and marketing plans and copy and pictures and videos and all this kind of stuff. So when they tell me that, I'm like super excited. Like, yes, I can do that. Like, I can rebrand everything. I can give your brand a voice. Like, it'll be super awesome. And then I'll walk into the company and they're like, yeah, that's not really what we want. We just want to keep doing what we've always done. And I'm like,
and it's what? Yeah, and I totally faced the same thing. I started working full-time when I was 18. I'm 37 now, and I was an admin and an executive assistant for all of my career until last year, literally a year ago. And then I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. You keep telling me you want me to change systems and you're not listening to me. But in all reality, it was also a reminder to what a coach said to me is go where you're appreciated, not where you're tolerated. The way we think, and it's not even just the way we think, as INFJs, there's a speed at which we evolve that seems very erratic to other people because they don't understand that we've sat with this information forever, have gone into infinite black holes on the internet researching, or gone to a library, or looked through we have looked at that one decision from so many angles and perspectives to be able to say it out loud. So what's been powerful, and good to get back to the age thing, is embracing that. Okay, well, you've just told me you hired me for this reason, and now you're telling me you don't want to evolve. Here's all the reasons you should. Here's all the, proof you need, all the research I've done, and here you go. And if the answer's still no, then move on. Like it's the letting go of the expectations, and even setting like a kind of a weird boundary in the workplace. We have such a special gift and such a special voice because we take so much time to internalize, and we don't need to explain that to anyone. Most people aren't forced to explain why they're doing things. So why should I? I'm not. Right. Part of also being healed is getting to a place where you just don't feel like you need to exhaust yourself just to do what you're supposed to do every day. There's like a release and a freedom in that I urge every INFJ to explore them. It's freeing, and it's led me to a job that if you had told me I was in inside sales and that I would be wanting to change the way relationship management is handled, like 2 years ago, even, I would have laughed in your face. I hate sales, like 100% hate sales, traditional sales environments. I've been in them. I absolutely loathe them because I don't like the interactions, the typical like stigmatized, predictably like snakiness of it. But I do like helping people. So why don't I just focus on that? And if someone's not willing to take me on for what I bring to the table, then I'll just go to a new table. Like, yeah, I urge every INFJ to get to a place where you realize your deeply internalized analytical gifts and intuition gifts are exactly that. They are such gifts, and harness that and get to know it for yourself in what you can bring to the table, and just like pivot. Believe in how fast you pivot, because you pivot so much faster than everybody else. And that's what's intimidating to other people. But you don't make change if you keep everyone comfortable. You don't.
That is so awesome. That's such a powerful message. Tell me that you have some kind of a blog or podcast or Instagram account or something, because if you don't, you should.
I've been thinking about it, and I have my blog URL reserved. So I definitely will be launching that before the end of the year. I just finished my degree, so
let me be this voice in your head that's telling you to take action. Don't make it perfect. Do it messy, do it scared, just get it up there and get it out, because you have this amazing message and so many people need to hear it.
Oh, thank you
Honestly,
so much.
you've inspired me so much.
No, you've inspired me. Like finding your page made me feel so understood on a social media thread. I feel like sometimes so inundated with just crap. So thank you.
I'm glad I started it because I needed the inspiration and I needed the hope. And there have been so many people that have been helped in the process. And it's just, it's such a blessing every single day. And to hear people say that is just, it's overwhelming, because I really thought if I could just help one person, like that would be enough. And then to hear people, you know, tell me almost daily, it's like hard to believe, but I'm just so thankful and so grateful. So well, it was so nice to talk to you. Unfortunately, I have to get going.
Me too. Nice to talk to you too, and thanks everyone for tuning in. I'm trying to go through the
when you do launch your blog, make sure that you send me the link.
I will.
I want to read it.
Okay.
All right. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
What an amazing conversation with Julia. I really hope that you guys were as inspired as I am. She was so much fun to talk to, and I learned so much from her. It's always nice to meet other INFJs, especially when they're in Boston too, where I live. That's so awesome. I'm looking for more podcast guests as well. So if you're an INFJ and you want to be on the show, I would love to talk to you. Please send me an email. You can find my email address in the show notes, and we'll see if we can't put something together. Also, I wanted to remind you that I am throwing a party to celebrate the 2-year anniversary of the Quiet Ones podcast. It's going to be on Instagram this coming Thursday, which is Thursday, September 16th at noon Eastern Time. It'll just be a live video, so come hang out. There will be a bunch of giveaways that I have, and we're just going to talk about the podcast, talk about maybe your favorite episodes and any suggestions that you have for upcoming episodes. I would love to see you there. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you again next week. So you just watched that video, and I'm sure you enjoyed it. If you want some more amazing information about INFJs, check out these videos right now. I'll see you there.